the owner or the guy that did it, built it, said, "Man, it feels like the bass is kicking me in the ass through the seat." Seriously. And so for a brief time, they thought, "Oh, well, okay, we'll call this the ass kicker."
Detailer's Roadmap Cruise Control, where we navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between. Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. I'm super excited today because, again, I just get to sit around and talk to my friends and let you guys listen along. Some of my friends have some of the coolest jobs and coolest experiences. And this guy, Roger Demaree, who is somebody I met through another connection, which I actually want to talk about networking and connections as part of this. And we've just become good friends. We had an interesting connection, which I'll get into also. But I'm super excited for him to be here. Before we get started, don't forget to go to detailersroadmap.com. Use that little demo button at the top. We build Kickass websites that do SEO, among some other amazing things. By hitting that demo button, you'll be able to get with one of our sales guys and be able to walk through with them your website, your SEO stuff to see whether or not it's a good fit and what we can do for you. Detailersroadmap.com. I'm going to read Roger's truncated bio. He sent me kind of some smart ass responses that I threw into ChatGPT, but we'll leave some of those out.
You know, all right, right here.
That's right. And we're recorded. Where's the mute button? Roger's director of marketing with a flair for events, partnerships, multimedia, and strategy. This is the ChatGPT output, by the way. Born and raised in Stillwater, Oklahoma, Roger cut his teeth managing front of house at Eskimo Joe's, which is a very famous restaurant. You've probably seen these shirts all over the world, actually, from 1984 to 2002 before heading to Stillwater Designs and Kicker, where he's been marketing director for 22 years. He's been married to his ever-patient wife, Laura, for 36 years. She is amazing. She also actually works in Eskimo Joe's. Believes more than ever that she has earned her community service award just by the fact that she's put up with him. And having had lunch with them not too long ago, she is amazing. She is. And we both married up. So
yeah, we outkicked our coverage.
Right. So Roger and I met at dinner with a friend of mine, Aaron Hagar, who in his own right is amazing and I need to have on this podcast.
I know.
But we went to dinner. We had this exchange where I forgot my reading glasses. He handed me the ones out of the back of his phone. Because we're old. And then we figured out that I actually grew up in Stillwater, Oklahoma. The house that I grew up in is about half a block away from the Kicker factory. And at that time it was much, much smaller. Didn't have the big ass sound system you guys have now in your lobby and all the cars and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we weren't even actually here.
I guess that's true. Building. Yeah, you weren't there, but you were in that same area.
We were in Stillwater, yeah.
Yeah, you were in Stillwater. So,
we're still growing.
But this is, and I want to talk about networking and how this kind of thing follows up. But I'm very excited. We got an opportunity to go back to Oklahoma and visit, and I was like, you got to come on the podcast. It'd be a super interesting experience to do that because it's something that even if you're not an audiophile, right? Like Kicker Stillwater Designs makes sound equipment. And it's something that you are like, well, I don't really care about that stuff. Well, don't tune out. Let's listen. We got a whole bunch of stuff to tell you about because we're going to talk business, networking, market trends, and that kind of thing. So there's always something you can learn. And so let's get started. That was a very long intro. You like that? It was like 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
One of the big things that I ask every time is the superhero backstory. And you know, everybody has a backstory. And like I said before we got started, I basically want to give the audience an opportunity to kind of get to know you a little bit, add some credibility and kind of insight into who you are. So that then, beyond the ChatGPT rendered bio. So why don't you give me that?
Well, first, the earth cooled and and then the dinosaurs came. And then they died, turned into oil, and then everybody bought Mercedes Benzes, and then I was born in 1963. So there you have it.
There we go.
uh, and which I actually just turned a year older 2 days ago.
Nice. Happy birthday.
So, thank you. And yeah, blessed, as you say, you mentioned Stillwater, Oklahoma. Man, I'm super blessed to have been born and raised here. My granddad came in the Oklahoma land right after the Oklahoma land run.
Wow.
In the late 1800s. So that's how far back our family has roots here. And so to been able to, be here and have two great careers as it is. I still say one of these days I got to grow up and get a real job. What I've done for.
I think we're a little late for that, my friend.
Yeah, because it really is. It's pretty cool. And so yeah, I grew up here and went to OSU and stumbled into this great little bar restaurant called Eskimo Joe's that you mentioned, which your listeners might have some fun checking that out. The history of that. They're actually celebrating their 50th year in business, which is, as you know, almost unheard of in that world.
Yeah. Especially for a little hole in the wall, literally.
Yeah.
Like that restaurant is tiny.
And it's grown and it's huge.
It's basically a bar and grill for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about. Go check them out online. But at one time when you talk about apparel, there were two T-shirts that you would see all over the world, and they were all of the Hot Rod Cafe shirts, or Hard Rock Cafe shirts, and Eskimo Joe's, and you would literally see them. I've seen them all over the world.
Yeah, and we got, they got named at one point the second most collectible shirt, out there. Period, next to Hard Rock, and that's only out of doing one store that's right here in the middle of Stillwater.
Yeah,
they ship worldwide. There's stories of all over of people seeing them. One of the best ones I liked was a guy that was climbing on a team with on Mount Everest, and bumps into somebody on another team, and the guy's got a Joe sweatshirt underneath his parka.
Let's hope he's not one of the guys that is still up there. That's what we.
Yeah. Well, hey, but even if he is, if he's still wearing the sweatshirts, like they say, there's no such thing as bad press, right?
That's good marketing. And then after, so you were in the restaurant business, which is its own super fast pace, and I'm sure very relaxing type of activity. And so when you had the opportunity, you went to work for Kicker.
I did, but I tell you, Kevin, the thing that I like to look about is when I look at what, and obviously your listeners or you don't really know, but this place Joe's was so much more than just being this college beer bar / burger joint. It was about the music that was played there, the people, the vibe, and that's what drew me to it even all those years ago. And it was all, obviously you were going into to do that. It was about having relationships with people and having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always thought, I said, well, I just transitioned that into Kicker. Because at the end of the day, I think a Kicker, like you told your listeners, we make audio gear, mainly 12-volt audio gear for cars and boats and trucks and motorcycles and side-by-sides, etc. But really, at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're creating stuff to the person, the customer, to enjoy their favorite music, which is what? That's always bringing a smile to your face. It's something fun. So I like to think that's really what we do. Is we're making gear that ultimately is there to be enjoyed and to bring a smile to somebody. And I love that, knowing that that's what we do. We're not making life-saving equipment here.
We're not curing cancer, as I say about the detailing industry, right?
Yeah, we're not hauling, we're not hauling organs around the country in an ice chest for transplant or something. But, we are providing that, I think, and at the same time, we kind of educate people what they're missing a little bit. I know you want to talk a little bit about that as far as cars, what comes in them now, and why our stuff is what it is.
But I don't want to gloss over this experience thing. We've if you haven't listened to this podcast that I did with who I actually just got off the phone with, Grant Menard, we did this. One of the podcasts we did was called basically detail. It's creating a Disneyland experience in your detail shop. That was kind of the premise of it.
Okay.
But the whole idea is the experience that the customer has is really at the center of everything that we do. That's from sales and customer service and all that kind of stuff. And it's crazy you say that, because I actually have never thought about that. But it actually, it makes total sense. I can look back to the fact that I had one of the first available Kenwood CD players that was available, commercially or retail.
Yeah.
Back in my 1991 Jeep. Everybody thought I was a drug dealer because I could afford that, but I just worked a lot.
Shoe fits.
Right. But like the nostalgia and memory associated with driving around with exceedingly loud music, having to hit the mute button when I pulled up to, and I was a good guy. I actually did hit the mute button at stoplights. Rather than just like rattle the doors off the car next to me. But there is a certain experience involved, and that actually is tied to one of the reasons we continue to be Jeep people in this family. And it's crazy to think that this sound equipment that is literally just magnets and cones and tweeters and subwoofers and all that stuff, right? It's amplifiers. And so, but go into that. Like, how does that transfer into what you do from a marketing standpoint? Like, how do you? So a little backstory, and I'm talking a little bit too much, but when you go into the studio at Kicker, and I highly recommend this, there is this wall of speakers that they turn up just like, what'd you say, like less than 20% or something like that?
Well, we actually, we'll turn it up as high as like 60%. But when we've had it up in the 70, 80%, it's dislodged light bulbs and structural pieces.
And it like shakes your entire body and your bones and rearranges you at an atomic level. But like, how do you take that experience that is that and transfer it into something like marketing for the average customer?
Well, and it's a good question. I want to answer that, but you said something earlier that I think is important that I try to, if given the opportunity like in this, to get out there. And I think it's something maybe your listeners will like, because you told me there are a lot of independent stores, small retail stores. And I learned this actually at Joe's, but it translated right over here to Kicker. And then I try to remember, and that is, so the owner of Joe's, his name was Stan. And I just tell you that for this story. And at one point, we started telling like our employees, we'd say, hey, look, you guys understand, you guys don't get paid. We don't get paid every 2 weeks or whatever it was from some magic bank account of Stan's. We get paid because of everybody that walks in that door that's looking for this experience of this place and the people and the food and the music and, the live music where we have. That's how we get paid. There's your lifeblood. Well, I said, that's the exact same thing, I think, in whatever business you're in. And so I feel that way here too. We don't get paid by some magic bank account of Steve Irby, our wonderful owner. It's because of what we're putting out there, and we're asking that lifeblood of our business, the customer that's coming into our retail stores, to purchase our gear, and that we need to deliver on that promise. I think that's a very important thing to always remember. That's really your lifeblood.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because even if whether you're an employee or the business owner or whatever, it's the customers that then, that's, there is no, I wish there was a magic bank account. Wouldn't that be nice if like every time you put your ATM card in or whatever, you just spit it out magically, right?
And so it's all, but like you said, then it comes down to, it's very relationships and communication, and which, I've, have said, especially over, say, the last 10, 15 years, I think we'd all agree has gotten even more complicated because of these little things.
Yep.
You know, and so you have, having that for that customer coming into your store, like you were saying, you're talking to your retailers of creating what you say, like a Disney.
Right. Yeah.
Disney
The
van.
experience for someone coming in for coding or PPF or any of those services, you want to walk them through this Disneyland experience, which, Disney does. There is no other company that does experience better.
Right. Oh, no. Yeah, they're phenomenal. But back to your point then on our stuff, what we do, really, I mean, and if I can give a little background on Kicker itself.
Yeah, just at whenever time you want, I want to hear the story of how this happened. Cause we see these pictures of Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos and all these kind of stuff in these little garages and, all that. And actually this is the same story.
It really is. But this will all tie in, when I'm done to, you're talking about that big wall of the big woofers and stuff that we have that just blows you out. So our owner, Steve Irby, who was he was a professional musician originally, very, very talented keyboard player, started Stillwater Designs, that business, in 1973, with the goal of making and designing and building, selling big PA systems, like the stuff for your concert halls and stage and live music and that whole bit. And so that's what he did for about 8 years, from 73 to 79. Until the guy, Oklahoma, as you know, full of pickup trucks, oil fields, farms, and a friend of his at a pickup in like 1980 said, "Hey, can you come up with something for my truck? Because there's just not much available out there other than the little 3-way speakers that you can get at, the auto parts store."
And this was probably a roughneck, right? Like it was late. So late. If you don't follow the oil and gas market, which is kind of my family's background, late 70s, early 80s, these guys were like 22 years old, 19 years old, and absolutely just like cash falling out of their pockets.
Yeah.
And it's similar actually in North Dakota. You see it now with the fracking areas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to lay that foundation that this is somebody that has probably a brand new 1980 pickup and more money than he knows what to do with.
Yeah. And so this guy came, wanting something. And so Steve, frankly, kind of reluctantly came up with, they thought, all right, what can you add? Because what's missing from, especially back then, is bottom end, is bass. Mm-hmm. And that's what Steve always liked, is that part of the music that really fills out and gives you that good, when it's done right, experience of listening to music. So he makes this box that fits right behind the seat of a standard size pickup, because even back then, most trucks were still standard cab. Mm-hmm. It fit, and it worked. It sounded great, and the bass, infamously, was the owner or the guy that he did it for built it, said, "Man, it feels like the bass is kicking me in the ass through the seat." Seriously. And so for a brief time, they thought, "Oh, well, okay, we'll call this the ass kicker." Well, that didn't last very long. They realized they can't do that. And so, we'll call it the kicker. And so Steve thought that one box, would be the only thing he would ever do in this arena, and he was going to go back to doing his building big stuff. And it's just that classic deal: right place, right product, right man, right time, and it just that grew into somebody they were a huge hit, and then somebody said, "Hey, you know what? This doesn't fit in a hatchback or something, whatever it was." All right, well, so they went and just reconfigured it, made a new box that fit in cars. And it just literally within, I think it was 2 years, it overtook the Stillwater Designs business that he was doing. And so Kicker became the brand. And it started, like you say, literally out of a little one garage house that his wife Becky kicked him out of with the business stuff because there's too much sawdust. and she made him get out, and they got to a little old building, Quonset hut, and then over the course of about 30 years, it just grew and grew and it grew, and it's been a wild ride, and I've been proud to be a part of it now for 22 years, and to see it, and a little bit like the growth of Eskimo Joe's. Like, I've been lucky to be part of those two.
Yeah,
But,
what a blessing, right? To be able to be able to watch that growth for both of them.
It is, and but so much was, Steve is an engineer by trade and by hobby, and a musician. So, and he has a great ear, and it just he had good people. He just has a penchant for, now that's not tooting my horn, but he's surrounded himself with some great people through the years. And that's another great point to say. And I think I told you this when you were here. We have roughly 200 employees here in Stillwater. And this should give your listeners an idea of what type of culture we have. We have about 200 people, and last year was our 50-year, or actually 2023 was our 50-year anniversary. I've been here 22 years, and I am number 51 on the seniority list.
That's some longevity.
Wow.
And like that attrition isn't really a word you guys use.
That's just unheard of, right? And that just is testament to what Mr. Irby, has done here with this company and fostering that culture.
And how does that happen? Like, what does that culture look like? Like, how do you, because that's one of the things that I think these small businesses, especially one person shop that ends up, all right, I need to hire 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever over time. Building that culture is such a challenge. What are some of the highlights that you think are the secret to having that, as you, Mr. 51? So there's 50 people ahead of you that have been there longer than 22 years. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'll tell you, I really have to say, like, first and foremost, when you talk about Steve and Becky and the culture they have here, is they are very, very strong in their faith. And that is something that has been very impactful to me over my 22 years in that growth. And he's a wonderful man. And very fair. He was very open with the operation of the business, what's expected. But at the core of it always is leaning into the faith. And matters of fact, I don't know if you recall when you were here, in this is our newer building. When you walk in the main doors into our visitor center, on the floor are inset brass letters that, I'm going to say it wrong. It's Latin. El Sol de Glorio. I can't remember exactly how you say it, but it's all glory to God.
Oh,
wow. Is in brass letters when you walk in our building.
So he, like, for him as a person of faith, he's built that he built his whole company on that foundation. And, whatever that foundation looks like for different people, but right. I think that's at the core of the foundation for him, which then builds on a certain culture. And clearly, if you were in New York City, it's a little bit more difficult to build a good culture around the Christian faith than it is.
That's not. It's by no means. No, it means we're not saying that's what. You asked me what was here.
No, that's you answered it perfectly.
But even besides that, I mean, you could even take that part of it off here to the side and just say, what does he do? Well, like I said, he's very open, he's accessible, he's fair, he's understanding, he's forgiving, and And it's always about, though, when working on what we're selling, right? I mean, what we're building and trying to get out there to the public.
Yeah.
It's what's best for the customer. And also not only what's best for the customer, but that customer for us is also that dealer.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, like your listeners having the detail shops and those who supply. To give you a good little idea of that, during COVID, you remember COVID? It was in all the papers.
Yeah, there was something that happened. I don't know.
I don't remember. So there was a point there where, I mean, in our industry, nobody had anything to sell, basically. I mean, we were hearing reports of, one of our competitors who normally has like 200 or 300 SKUs in their line. They had like 10.
Wow.
They were down like 10 that they could get and sell when things were just so bad. They were trying, with the whole supply chain. How tired did we get here of hearing that term?
Yeah, I used to get daily updates on how many ships were off the coast of Long Island. It was like, all right, well, it's 47 ships now. It's 58 ships. It's 75. And every day it went up because there was just all these goods and stuff that just couldn't get anywhere.
I saw a similar deal. It was a tracking thing on the port out of Long Beach in LA. And you could see this map, and it had all the ships that were out there. And there were dozens. Actually, I think at one point, there was 80. 80 just sitting out there waiting to come in. But the point being here was there was a time in there where, and due again to Steve's stewardship and leadership and relationships was big to him. We would stay with. We have stayed with to this day certain manufacturers and factories that we use for decades. Well, that really paid off at this time because they helped us, stepping up their production as best they could. And then Steve, at one point, we spent, what was it I heard? It was over $600,000 to ship air freight amplifiers over for our key dealers. We lost money. Okay.
Yeah.
But he did this because he wanted them to have something to sell on their to do, to have. And it wasn't about, no, we're going to let this all come in on ships when they can. And then we're going to race. No, let's air freight this stuff over. So these guys are our customer, the one that's helping us pay our bills, have stuff in their stores. And it cost obviously a lot on the front end, but ultimately, you know what? We got some market share from it, and we got some loyalty from it. And again, it was at the time you're kind of going, why are we doing this? And then you go, oh, okay, because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think what you're pointing out, and this is, I was thinking about, and I've said this on the podcast so many times, but so if you get sick of hearing it, don't, because it's good stuff. I rewrote my goals on my whiteboard above my desk, and it's have fun, serve others, and build a life. Right.
Amen.
And a big component of that is integrity and, service to your customers, service to your dealers, service to your family, and service to your employees. Right. And so, but there's this integrity piece that it's just hearing you talk about, Steve, is a great point that I think so many times does not get discussed in business now. And whether you're a single operator or you have a big, multiple 6-figure, 7-figure shop, how you do things in your life, personally and business wise, if integrity is at the center of it. Because
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was just going to say, I think a real maybe oversimplified deal of that is, and it's how I've always tried to operate on my little corner of what I do with Kicker, and even before I was director, but working with these relationships, whether it was with marketing partner companies like Makita or Lincoln Electric, uh, or with our ambassadors like Eric Hagar, et cetera, was or getting us involved in just other events, say around the country. I always felt like, look, if it's not a win-win thing, which that's an overused term, but that's the best I have. If it's not a win-win deal for both parties, and that goes for, I think for you, when you're talking about working with your employees, et cetera, if it's a win-win and it's what is a proverbial rising tide raises all ships, right?
Right. This episode is brought to you by Detailer's Roadmap. Hey, spoiler alert, that's us. We all know you need a kick-ass website in order to be successful with your business. The good news is at Detailer's Roadmap, kick-ass websites, that's kind of what we do. With the latest performance, designs, and SEO strategies, Detailer's Roadmap is your one-stop shop to be successful on the web. And don't forget, we have the best support team in the industry. Whether you're an existing partner looking to improve your lead generation or you need a brand new website, Detailer's Roadmap is here to help you be successful on the web. So go to detailersroadmap.com/success and get started today. That's detailersroadmap.com/SUCCESS.
I mean, that's what it has to be for me, and it served me well, right? I mean, I think the vast majority of the time is when if I approach things like that, and I know, when I'm dealing with somebody that has a shared feeling of that sort of mentality of uh, of doing the right thing and being a good person, if you will, that's gonna then things are gonna work out. I'll tell you what, dude. I've been doing this, obviously a long time here at Kicker in this same venue of the marketing stuff, and I have very, very few written contracts in my file down here.
Yeah.
With people I've worked with, very few.
And I want to give some context. All right. So you kind of have this little showroom display thing that you walked us through, which was friggin' awesome. It was like, walking down memory lane, but there's photos. Can you just, I don't want you to I do want you to name drop, but I'm kind of wanting to put in context this whole networking like you were doing influencer marketing. That didn't even exist whenever you were developing some of these relationships. It was a different way that they did it. So can you just kind of walk us through some of those relationships that you have and some of the people that have been a part of it? Tell the Sir Mix-a-Lot story, because I think I just told that to a friend of mine and I thought that was hilarious. That was a great story. So anybody over the age of like 30, under the age of 35 won't know who Sir Mix-a-Lot is, but
I don't know how many of your listeners just went, huh?
I just listened to that song this morning, by the way.
Oh, that's fun.
During our workout, because we were doing legs, and so "Baby Got Back" is an appropriate song for doing legs.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've kind of said it's connecting dots, and I think some of the most fun I've had and satisfying stuff I've had of doing what I do is when things come together with people that you would never have seen coming before, right? And Sir Mix-a-Lot, but like a good example, you mentioned Aaron Hagel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that all came from a relationship that actually started with my wife working with Guy Fieri.
Okay.
And that was a deal because of a guy that had a connection to Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And
there you go.
And he was doing stuff with Fieri, looking for merch help. My wife, who started all that for Eskimo Joe's, steps in. So now she's helping, and we meet Guy. And then we end up going up to Santa Rosa to see Fieri years ago, and we're at an event at one of his little restaurants, and I think I told you the story, walks by this guy with this cool shirt, like a shop shirt with all this cool car stuff on it. I stop him and we start talking. We don't even introduce each other than first names. And I later find out through guy, oh yeah, that's Aaron Hagar. And it's like, oh, wow, okay, cool. I've never been a big, oh gee whiz, I need your autograph or picture.
Yeah, right.
But, and so, wow, okay, so that connected to that, and all of a sudden, Aaron and I become great friends, and I start finding out how his dad has used Kicker in some of his cars going way back.
Yep. And just if you don't, so Aaron Hagar is a really good friend, one of my best friends also, and that's how I met Roger. Aaron is, and I never lead with this. Right. If you're familiar with Van Halen, Sammy Hagar, who had a career outside of Van Halen, also very successful. That's Aaron is his son.
Yes.
Aaron, in his own right, is a very talented musician and singer and car builder and artist. He's like the white Jamie Foxx to me. And I don't think I've ever told him that, but I need to text him that because he's just
hold on.
Let's call Aaron now. Because he's just one of those guys that is good at freaking everything, and it's almost unfair how much talent that he has been given in so many different areas. But so you're talking about Sammy using your equipment, and he's a car collector also, right? So,
and your point though, but at the core of you just said that, right? It's how talented Aaron is.
Yeah.
But to me though, at the core of all that though, quite frankly, none of that means that much to me.
Nope.
More than the fact that he's a good dude.
Literally one of the best guys I've ever met.
Just genuine, this genuine person that the longer you know him and visit that, and their heart and where they're coming from, that this is real, and it's genuine. And that means always a lot to me to get off on a little tangent.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky enough to work with, now not all, but, through, like I said, those connecting the dots and meetings, this one person and leads to, well, what about this? And, but we've worked, it's kind of like another odd one was through a friend that had done some stuff with Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top.
ZZ Top, yep.
Well, I meet Billy at an event through him, and we are on a bus and visit. And that leads to us knowing each other a little bit. And like I said, I'm not sitting there trying to drop names, but Billy Gibbons is a really, really nice man and an amazing talent, as you know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, now you jump ahead, and I meet this artist named Tim Montana in Nashville through another mutual friend, and Tim's a recording artist. And I be good friends with him, and I'm helping him with some of his tour stuff, and then find out he and Billy are really good friends. And Billy's been on some of his records. And next thing you know, we're doing, we're meeting and doing stuff together. Great story. I will have to tell you, I'm on the bus with Billy Gibbons after one of their concerts, and he's a big foodie, loves his Mexican food. And I said, you know what? I got somebody that you need to talk to. So I called Guy Fieri. And I got Guy on the phone, and I just said, hey, Guy, I just got somebody here that I think you'd like to talk to, really digs food. I didn't tell him who it was.
Yeah.
And I hand my phone to Billy, and then also here's Billy meeting Guy on the telephone and start talking, and they just both, it was hilarious.
That's awesome.
Connected dots. So and of course, through some of that stuff, we do cars, we'll, for people, we'll do projects. And then, like you say, it was all kind of before all this social media stuff. And quite frankly, recently my good friend and coworker here commented to me that he's hearing, and he's right, that right now the word influencer is kind of a bad word.
Yeah, they've gone from influencer to now micro influencer and like nano influencer. Like it's all these really small names.
It's just influencer, period.
They don't like to be called that anymore.
Either ambassador or content creator.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and they're just saying some of these younger demographics are, you say the word influencer to them, they just think, oh, that's just somebody shilling for somebody that's paying.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well,
I like it, the relationship side of it, and I want to bring this point home and kind of drive it to, like, if you tuned out because we're kind of talking about name dropping and all these different people.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
At the end of the day, and I stood up at a presentation at one of our trade shows not too long ago, MTE, that one of our industry guys, Rennie Doyle, did. And I talked about when you meet someone, it is not transactional. Like, you need to be working towards a genuine connection, and you're not going to connect with everybody. Like, you've probably met some people you come away from and like, that guy's a dick. I don't want to, like, not only do I not want to talk to him, but I definitely don't want to do business with him. You
probably got listeners right now that got tired of my voice in 30 seconds and tuned out.
Well, I got tired of it before we even started, but
and I'm sorry.
But like,
but
if you make that transactional, whenever you meet someone, and I'm not talking about meeting like very high end A-list bands and that kind of stuff. I'm talking about anyone you meet, whether it's someone at the Chamber of Commerce, a realtor, a mayor, or whoever. Yes. If you're looking to make the connection, that becomes the central point of it versus what can I get from, like, if I approach it as what can I get from this person? When you and I went out to dinner, or when I met Aaron or whoever, like I told Aaron, like, dude, I don't really care what you do for a living. Like, you're just a really cool guy that I want to get to know. I think I told Asian from Farm Truck and Asian the same thing, who's literally he's one of the coolest, most helpful guys in the world.
And they've been great friends with Kickass.
But like all of these people that I've met, it's just when you start to say they just happen to have a different job, whether they make a few $100 million a year or they make, $50,000 a year. It doesn't really matter. Like, that's not part of the deal. It's that genuine connection that you're building. And I think it's a superpower of yours to be able to make those connections. And I've always said, I think that's one of my superpowers, is to be able to continue to strive for that.
Yeah. Well, and that's very kind of you to say. And I agree about you too, man. And thank you for saying that. And I can tell you, for, what it's worth too, I get, look, let's be honest, cash makes, pays the bills, makes
right.
And, I've had a number of times with some people that I have over here on my board here at my office that are, and I'm going to say ambassadors, but are working for a long time. And, look, we're a successful worldwide company, blessed with some amazing business. But the funny thing is back to Steve, I told you this when you were here, he's about the product.
Yeah.
Of what's going on, that person's there, what they're here. Marketing to him is kind of a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm.
And so we operate with a pretty thin marketing budget overall compared to some of our competitors. And so there's times that I'll be working with somebody on an individual basis. And it's kind of like, here's what I can do. We can start here. This is baby steps. Now, maybe over the course of a couple of years, okay, I'm going to, hey, look, all right, let's continue, but I can give you this. But then it gets to a point, and I'm where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I've told many people who now by this time have become friends, we have a relationship. And I say, look, I get it. Money pays the bills. And if you have somebody that's knocking on your door in our space that wants to come in and give you, 5 times what I'm doing, do it.
Yeah.
You need to do it. No hard feelings. Seriously, look, we've had a great time. I appreciate everything we've done, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm pretty sure I've yet to have one of those people that I've had that conversation with jump. They stay, and they're like, no, you've been with me since the beginning, or you believed in me when I was starting out, and I like what you guys are about, et cetera, et cetera. And we stay on with, they forego some potential extra money. And that means a lot.
Yeah. Cause that loyalty comes from relationship.
Yeah.
And that works for customers and your dealers. And I mean, I'm sure that your dealers probably have an opportunity in some cases to do other things too. So,
well, just like I'm sure with your listeners in the shops that they own, I'd be willing to bet those that are there that are successful have stories of their own of people that have been a good customer, but that they have that connection with them, and it's the little things that they do for them that strengthens that bond of that customer. Where, and like I said, I think probably sometimes your shop owner probably doesn't even realize they're doing it, if they're doing it right,
right?
But of how they treat that customer and their family for that matter, right? But it comes so much down to communication and just caring and knowing, hey man, not to get too off the rails here, but just, we're all here for that long.
Yeah.
You know what? And so let's try to make it as easy on everybody as we can.
Yeah, for sure.
And just share the love and get out there and do what you do and try to make people happy.
And is there like were you a natural, does all this come naturally for you, or is this something that you kind of established over time? The ability to connect with people, or did you I really screwed this up early on, or is this from being in the restaurant industry, or I'm curious because I think a lot of people don't do it well. Like they're either afraid to make those connections or they feel embarrassed or whatever. But I'm when I meet people like yourself who is so good at it, I like to kind of pick their brain and say, well, what are these core things that make that work?
Well, no, I can answer that pretty easy, man. I get it from my parents. And it is, I'm just blessed with having, I think I've always had that, I can remember growing up and having, and I'm the youngest by 9 years of my siblings. I've got my brothers are 9 and 10 years older than me, and a sister is 13. So I would hear the stories, how they talked about me as a little kid, like I'd engage with anybody, and everywhere. It doesn't matter, race, color, creed, age. It didn't matter. But then, so I think that's always been there. But then when I look at where it came from, I look at my parents, particularly my dad, this guy that was his life read like a movie script, born in Oklahoma during the Depression, raised on a farm, becomes a state wrestling champion, goes to Oklahoma State, wrestles, goes into World War II, goes to Europe as part of of all that over there during, before and after the invasion into France, and comes back, starts a family, the whole bit, but he had that. And I watched what he did through his life. It didn't matter to him if he was talking to the plumber digging the ditches over here on a house job he was doing, or if he was talking to the president of Oklahoma State University. Didn't matter. Treat them all the same and could be genuine and converse with them. And I observed that a lot. And I think that's always important. I'll tell you straight up, I told you, I've been blessed to work with a lot of some fun personalities, but that's why I don't like doing the name dropping thing. Because to me, to me, you want to talk about who are the celebrities in my life or my world that I think are worthy of that boo. Your military and your first responders and your healthcare workers and our veterans. Those are the people that get my attention and more admiration than any actor or musician or thing ever will. So
well, and like I said, at the end of the day,
out there listening to hear my soapbox.
No, I mean, first of all, I have a daughter-in-law in the Army, and my youngest daughter is a paramedic. So I appreciate you saying those two things. Awesome. But I never served in the military, but I have a high respect for them. But at the end of the day, I think that it brings home the point, because I think if you think of people the way that most people think of celebrities or people that just happen to have a really cool job or whatever in a very public facing thing, I think we put too much emphasis on the what versus the who, right? And I think that's the point I'm trying to drive home is when you meet people, whether they drive whether they're driving a soccer mom car or a hyper car, and they're coming into your shop, they both have money to spend with you.
Yes.
And quite honestly, the soccer mom may have more money to spend with you because the other guy's got a $12,000 a month car payment.
Right.
So
yeah, right.
But the idea is to make
has more potential to be a return customer.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so so trying not to don't judge people, or don't not even judge, but don't form relationships on what you think that person has to offer to you. Amen. I always look for, and I know you're the same way. It's like, what can I do for you? One of the things that strikes me about Asian is like, every time I see him, he's like, how can I help you and your business? I'm like, really? Like, and he always has ideas for me, and we talk shop and all that stuff. But like that means so much to me, because I'm asking him the same thing, and it's crazy because I almost always have something to offer to him as well as he has to offer me. And it's like, that's that exchange. But from a customer service standpoint and from just a relational standpoint, I think it's super important.
And then back to just customers and how you take care of people. I'll tell you a story just happened just yesterday. That is a good example. Is we had one of my guys came to me and said he saw on one of our social media deals that there's a Kicker fan club deal where this guy talked about he had bought some of our woofers on eBay, second, used, and they were one of our higher end lines, and he had a mechanical issue with them. Which is very, very rare. A mechanical issue with the sub, that when I heard about it, I'm like, I never heard of that, right? Well, the bottom line was, my guy was like, this guy wasn't mad. He wasn't asking. He just said, this is what's happened. And my guy came to me. He tells me about it. And we end up giving him a couple free. I just said, what did he have? And we gave him a discount for like 50% he could buy, because they were way out of warranty.
Yeah.
These are things that are way out of warranty. He didn't buy them direct, but he was a fan, liked our gear. This happened. And when we told this guy what we're going to do for him, his response back was it was off the charts.
Yeah.
And he was so amazed, genuinely amazed, that a company our size could react like we did, and to genuinely help out and so fast. I think his words were, "It's truly remarkable." And
that's right.
That fit great. Those are sort of things that make it worth it, right?
Yeah. And I guarantee that guy's not buying any more gear off eBay.
Right. And he's gonna buy Kicker, but it's even beyond that. So same thing with your listeners, your people with the shops. It's those sort of things that they can do that's gonna, can get them that customer for a lifetime. Well, I'll guarantee it's true, even in the detailing business. One day I learned at Joe's in the restaurant bar business. Now, this is back, remember, this is before, I'm aging myself, right? Before the silly cell phones and social media. But the consensus was in that restaurant bar industry is for every good experience a customer has at your place, they may tell 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
For every bad experience, they'll tell 8 to 10. And I guarantee you that those numbers have skyrocketed with social media, right?
And online reviews and all that, right?
Yeah. And now you look at what you have now, and dude, it's crazy. So,
well, it's not like they're just telling 10 people. They do 10 different reviews on 10 different places, right, which then meets tens of thousands of people potentially, right?
And now, granted, let's be honest, as we know, some people just wake up on the wrong side of the bed every day,
every single day.
Yeah. As I say, they would bitch if they were hung with a new rope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some people are just a jackknife chicken truck and every day, and that's just how they live. And you just can't make everybody happy.
Right.
That if anybody that's worked retail, I don't care, again, whether it's selling car stereo or beer and cheese fries or detailing and car care stuff like what you guys and your people do. Yeah, you're gonna have those.
Can't make everybody happy, and you have to be okay with that for sure.
Oh, you do. And hey, I remember I told somebody once that in the restaurant bar business, I actually had to go tell somebody because they bitched all the time. I just said, you know what? We're going to suggest that you just don't come back.
Yeah. Firing customers is actually kind of a rewarding thing. If if you're listening to this and you have that one, like, I guarantee as soon as I just said that, someone came to mind.
Somebody came to mind. I'll promise you.
I always call it the a-hole tax, right? Like if you want to be that way, you pay 3 to 5 times more than the average customer. And if you can afford that, but really at the end of the day, it's not worth it. But if that person comes to mind, you need to consider whether or not you actually want to do business with them. Well, hey, I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to go through something that makes that I think is useful for even small businesses, medium businesses, but it's this idea of kind of being ahead of trends. Like in our industry, as an example, it used to be just detailing and, buffing cars, paint correction, and that kind of thing. Then ceramic coatings became very popular. And then from now, PPF, paint protection film, is like the money maker. Okay. So, but we still have shops that are kind of early in that, like they may not even fully have adopted ceramic coat. They may be a couple steps behind, right?
Okay.
Talk to me about how Kicker has been able, back in, I was talking about my 1991 Jeep, right? There was no pain for me. First of all, I ordered it without a stereo, quote unquote, in it because I knew I didn't need it because I was just going to go buy a bunch of really expensive equipment. And that crap was really expensive at that point, by the way.
Yeah.
But now, we're going to put some of the Kicker equipment in my 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee, right? So one of the selling points for my extended warranty in that vehicle is that the head unit is over $5,000. It's got GPS, Sirius XM, CarPlay, all of those things, right? So the last thing I'm going to do is yank that thing out.
Right.
Like I'm just not like, there's no compelling reason for me to do it. So when I talk to you, I'm like, well, what do you do here? And it's got this sound system. And then we talked to your engineer and he's like, well, it's got this, and this, which sucks. It's got the rear that stupid rear sub in it, which is terrible. And so we're going to replace tweeters mid-range and put a sub box, which is, it integrates great into the back of the Jeep. So I want to set that stage because all that to say, you guys have adapted And like we said, we use the magic pivot word, right? Which is a dumb word.
Pivot.
But you guys adapted ahead of time to see this coming. Like, how do you do that as a company to be able to kind of, so that you don't get the Polaroids and Kodaks and anybody, like I said, anybody much younger than us is going to be like, I don't even know what those companies are, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason you don't know who they
There is
are.
a reason. You're right. There's a reason you don't.
But I think even in small businesses, we have to be able to have that adaptation and to look forward and be ahead of that. Kind of what has Kicker done in that I think that what can we give advice wise or show as an example of how that's worked?
Well, what we did was, first of all, you'll notice, I don't know if you noticed that in our product offering from day one to now, one thing that we never got into, and to your point about talking about your Jeep, are the head units, the source unit, head units in the DAF. We've, thank goodness that we, again, ownership saw that that's not something we would get into. Plus, we started getting, again, he had some good people they brought into work that were familiar with, big car people and time, especially in the manufacturing process. When we knew 18, 19 years ago, our guys were coming and say, hey, here's what's happened. The OEs, manufacturers, they are deliberately working towards making it harder and harder for companies like us to integrate product in. And we saw that coming. And the first place they were doing that was the head unit. And good Lord, I don't know how far back you got to go, but I don't know, almost any car, regardless of price level, has what you know is the old standard single din head unit.
I have a 1994 Grand Cherokee in my yard because I'm that neighbor. That has, I think it has an infinity system in it, but there is like, it's not even a double din. It's like, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it, but it's like, I would have to rip the entire dash apart in order to put a new head unit in that thing. And it's a terrible radio. The sound wasn't terrible, but it wasn't, it was still terrible. But like, to your point, that's 30 years old.
Right. So what we did is we realized, we're not going to get into that. And that we needed to start, how can we, again, pivot and make things that are going to fit and be able to integrate into the more popular vehicles going forward. And then part of that ended up being working with the OEs, getting, and we've been really fortunate to have some great relationships like within GM particularly, and some Ford. We work with Dodge quite a bit. I'm really stoked that we're now going to start doing some stuff with Toyota. But all that is born out of that need of, hey, here's what they're doing on their end to basically make it harder. But also, here's the deal. Back to the, what makes Kicker in a way, in sound. The reality is, I tell this to people all the time. Most of your new cars now, most of them, the stereos in them aren't that bad as far as the top end is concerned. Meaning, your tweeters and your mids. Nobody, even the cars like your Jeep that has a quote, and we'll put it in big quotes, subwoofer.
Right. That little 8-inch, whatever it is in the rear quarter, interior thing.
That wouldn't shake a glass of water. So they don't have that. And so, now granted, we do make speakers for all around the car, but that bass technology, subwoofers, the amplifiers to do it, we're still the world leader in. And that's when you can go and educate somebody, hey, here's what you're missing. You talked about the soccer mom in your listeners' shops, right? Of being able to say, hey, soccer mom, you don't have to go in and have your car torn apart and spend $5,000 to have good sound. Look, we can have you in and out of here in a day. We have this little widget that'll integrate into here to do this, and then have an amp, and then we put this subwoofer thing in the back that you could stack groceries on.
Yep.
You could stack your kids on, whatever. and boom, all of a sudden, hey, I got, that bottom end, that bass kicking in the butt, that really fills it out and makes it. Then you go, wow, I just didn't know what you were missing.
Yep.
So how do you tie that back in? I think getting to know your customers and these what's PP, what's the
PPF? Yeah, doing
PPF.
vinyl, doing the paint protection film. Yeah,
is obviously that's something new that's out there, but it's I think for your people, it's like what's out there that the customer wants first of all, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to think about what is it they want that they don't even know yet that they want.
Right.
And then let's show them that and how this can work and be a great value or it helps the value of the vehicle, or it saves them money, or whatever that is. For us, it was what can make it easier to use our gear in these cars that we see coming down the line.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the box that we're going to put in the back of the Jeep, you and I had a discussion. I'm like, oh, and I went and I looked. I'm like, okay, one's 27 inches wide, one's 24 inches wide. Which one's going to fit better and be less obtrusive, right, to the back end of my Jeep, and with the dogs, because we have our seats laid down with our dumb dogs in there all the time, and so, but it's going to be a perfect fit. I haven't put it in there yet, but it's going to be a perfect fit.
Yeah,
and it's fun because you can. Like Michelle's Sugar High Jeep has what is essentially a marine system in it. So we have those huge tower. We have two of those huge tower teardrop things in the back, and it's obscenely loud, but it's got to be loud because of the tires, because the tires sound like a Cessna's trying to land on the roof of the Jeep all the time. But it's something that is like I love the idea of being able to kind of really examine what fits best for the customer and be able to offer those things to the customer. And
I'll be honest with you, obviously I don't know the details or the ins and outs of the detail shops you're talking about, because quite frankly, maybe we're missing something here. We don't have, there's like in Stillwater, we don't have what we would call a top end detail shop. There's a couple of people like I know that do stuff out of
or they exist and they suck at marketing because a guy who's the director of marketing has never heard of you. So if you're listening to this in Stillwater, Oklahoma,
whoever lives out there, you need to do better. And I know a couple, and I'm thinking, man, you could probably be doing a lot better. But
now, I do have a question, Regate, and I did not set this up, but so excuse me if I catch you off guard on this. We're always looking for additional ancillary things for detail shops, right? Whether it's PPF or whatever. Is something like car audio something that you can fairly easily integrate into service shops of this type? And it could be a no. I'm just saying I'm just curious.
My gut reaction, first of all, is no. You'd have to have a really concentrated effort and expense of the shop end of it to do the work. And unfortunately, and this is something we're actually trying to do, is getting involved with some programs that are trying to encourage young kids to get into the industry of a trade. As trades,
right? Yeah. Well, that's a world that I live in, right?
Right.
The trades, right?
And so right now, like if you were one of your listener shops and you thought, yeah, I want to add car audio install stuff to my shop, they find it real quick, unfortunately, to find somebody, that knows their stuff and can do the work. It's hard.
Got to be a challenge.
I run into it all the time, frankly. I mean, we have, I forgot how many now, what our number is just in the U.S., dealers and shops. And being here right in the middle of Oklahoma is awesome. But it hurts sometimes if I've got a project, like I have one currently right now for the Hard Rock Hotel Casino in Florida, and for a custom vehicle they're doing. Well, I can't get it here. To get it here and shipped and back and done, and
it's an extra $7-8 grand right there.
So what I end up doing is I'm working with our reps. I'm finding, hey, who do we have in this particular area? But then it comes down to, well, yeah, we got this shop, and this shop. But this one over here, you don't want doing that work.
They specialize in something else.
Well, they just specialize. They can do something very simple.
Yeah.
If it's what we call a deck and fork, if it's like, yep, you're replacing stock stuff and they're fine. But, if there's something that means like, you're tearing into a $200,000 resto mod and custom building stuff, there's not very many of those shops out
there. Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing to do is we recommend, like, if you don't do tent inside in-house, you should be aligned with a tent shop outside. Like, this is another opportunity that maybe you get a 20%, 15% spiff back if you connect with a car audio shop, and you could at least offer that as, something, because because I think the perception, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted you to talk about this, is that and I just got off the phone with my friend. He was like, Kicker's still doing their thing, right? And I'm like, 100%. Because whether you have a 2025 or or a 1965, there's something that can go in there. And I think that this is a almost like an ancillary sales opportunity that you wouldn't even have to bring in house for most modern vehicles. Yeah.
Well, and it's, and you bring something up that's curious, and I don't know how it affects your listeners and their shops, but I'd be curious what the numbers are nowadays of what's the average age of the vehicle out on the road today. Obviously lately you always heard about is how expensive, cars are getting.
Yeah, I think the average is somewhere 34 or 38,000. I think we're getting more vehicles over 10 like years.
40. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy what the average is, even for entry level.
With your listeners and their shops, what are they seeing coming through? Are they working on a lot of, when we say older cars, it's crazy to think, but a 2010 is an older car.
Yeah. Right? Well, it's funny. I've seen that meme. It's like what I think a 20-year-old pickup looks like, and it's like a 1992, and what an actual 20-year-old or 10-year-old pickup or 20-year-old pickup looks like, and it's they're a newer generation. You think of them as a newer generation. So that's like I was talking. Well, now you got me on a tangent, but it's like a friend of mine's a musician texted me the other day how happy he was that his 13-year-old boy was listening and using our new Kicker wireless earbuds. And he asked him, goes, what are you listening to? And he said, a bunch of classic rock like Nirvana and Metallica. Yeah, that is classic rock now, man. He's like, well, crap, I guess it is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I figured out how old I was because I watched the halftime show at the Super Bowl not too long ago. And evidently the guy that did it, what's his name? Lamar? Jehoshaphat. I'm an idiot, so you can I will tell you how old I am because I don't even know the guy's name. And not really, I like rap, but I didn't like the halftime show. But I'm thinking to myself, all right, who is this guy? So I Google him, and this dude is so popular and is one of the highest Grammy award-winning artists, and very good at what he does. But I was thinking, man, I am officially super old now. So It is what it is. But dude, this has been great. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And if you stuck with this, I think there's some really great information and nuggets in here. Relationally and how you run your business and kind of what you. So I hope you've taken some of that stuff out of this. So
thank you so much for you for inviting me on this. What you do is amazing. You're very, very good at what you do, my friend. And it's cool that you have this, and thank you to your listeners out there that are still there or haven't fallen asleep or
there you go.
Are doing shots of tequila
now.
Well,
I mean, maybe they are, but so is it just kicker.com? How do they find out more information about Kicker?
Just go to kicker.com.
Kicker.com.
And to that point, you were talking earlier, just, find on our site, and when it comes to our product, all the info is there. We have tons and tons of info about our gear is there, and we have live human beings on the end of the telephone lines here. If you have to call and talk to somebody.
And you're going to be in our country, in
yes,
Oklahoma, USA. So
you are going to be talking to somebody about 200 feet away from my office right here. And we have people, I promise you, that have forgotten more than I'll ever know about our stuff.
Nice. I love it. Hey, I will say before we go, we were talking about Soccer Mom vehicles. I do have to admit that whenever I installed the stereo into Sugar High, which is an 04 Jeep, by the way, I may or may not have used Taylor Swift's Shake It Off as my test song, because it has a very good mixture of low end, mids, and high to get that balance.
I think me and your current listeners are probably a little disappointed right now.
But if the Soccer Mom has teenage girls and like Taylor Swift, there you go. Yeah. That's the tie-in. That's the tie-in. Thanks, Roger. I hope you have a great day, man.
Appreciate you so much. Take care.
Head over to detailersroadmap.com and get your one-stop success solution today.